Brothers, consider the time of your calling. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many of you were powerful. Not many of you were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. He chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. He chose the lowly and despised things of the world and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast in his presence. Hello, my name is Greg Brewer. My wife, Tanja, and I have been members of the District Church for almost 2 years. The question that frames my story is, can God use me when I feel that I'm not enough? I grew up as an average kid born in the 70s who was raised by divorced parents. Despite our family being fractured, my parents found a way to share parenting responsibilities, even though they were not together. Like most families in my neighborhood, we were on the lower end of what is considered middle class. My family was not noble or powerful by the world standards, but we had each other. I have wonderful memories of my childhood. By all accounts, I developed a healthy image of myself and what I could do in life. I determined that whatever I was missing in my background, I would make up the difference with hard work and determination. Like most overachievers, I worked extra hard to be the best at whatever I did in life. My hard work led to a successful technical career in the military, followed by other career opportunities in technology and management. The confidence that came with being a great technician and manager gave me a sense of belonging and self-worth. I felt that I was the best at my job, so I deserved to be in the room and have influence with others. It was later in life that I discovered that underneath my confident exterior, there was a lot of insecurity in my heart. I wanted to be viewed by others as being valuable and worthy. I never noticed that about myself until I was placed in positions where I wasn't the most qualified person in the room. At age 20, I felt that God called me to be a minister of the gospel, which was not on my list of things to do in life. 4 years later, I met and married my beautiful wife, which was an amazing surprise. Then a few months later, at the age of 25, I did something I told my wife I would never do. I became a bivocational pastor of a church, which meant I worked a full-time job and pastored a church. Yeah, what was God thinking? And what was I thinking to say yes? Pastoring was the most rewarding thing I had ever done, but also the hardest. I was so unqualified. I was young, newly married, had never attended Bible college or seminary. But I knew that God had asked us to love that congregation whose pastor had died the prior year. So we cared for the members of the church and served that community for 4.5 years. We poured our hearts into those years of pastoring and parenting our growing family. When it came time for us to leave, I was both sad and happy. I would miss the people whom I had grown to love, but I would not miss the feeling of being a failure. Like many pastors, I measured success by the numerical growth of the church. We did exactly what God called us to do, but the numbers didn't reflect it. To be honest, it was the first time in my professional career that I didn't achieve the goals I had set for myself. And for me, that meant I had failed. I wrestled with doubts of not being good enough as a pastor for a long time after that experience. I'm sure I'm not the only one that has doubted their abilities, but it sure felt that way. I told God that I never wanted to be a pastor again. So when we moved to Nashville, I chose to return to the field of technology. I needed to do something that matched my experience and my credentials. Plus, I just wanted to feel good enough again. I eventually became the video producer and editor at a very large church in the city. My position kept me busy in the production room, so I never taught, preached, or led a small group at the church. About a year into that position, my father died. I had the honor of preaching my dad's eulogy at his service. My executive pastor was at that funeral, and after hearing me preach, he asked me to interview for one of the vacant pastor positions. As God would have it, I was hired to lead the largest ministry department of the church. But once again, God was placing me where I didn't have enough credentials to be. My resume never had the traditional qualifications for a high-level ministry position. I didn't have the ministry degrees, but I had the experience. I am absolutely the guy that the HR department is thinking about when they include the phrase "in lieu of degree" in the job announcement. Every position that I've been blessed to have over 17 years in full-time ministry came in lieu of some qualification that the position required. The downside of being chosen despite the lack of qualifications is that I struggle with internal doubt. How did I get here? Am I qualified to be here? Is someone going to find out that I am not supposed to be here? I was always honest about my formal education on my resume, but somehow I always found myself in the room where things were happening. One of my friends wrote a really good book titled Overcoming the Imposter. He talks about how many of us struggle with seeing ourselves as competent or worthy, even though our history of success says otherwise. We strive to be the best, but when we get to the top of the hill, we feel lost or out of place. I've been fortunate to have friends in my life who saw things in me that I sometimes couldn't see in myself. We all need friends like that. While serving on staff at a mega church in Texas, I felt completely out of my league. Almost everyone on staff had a master or doctoral degree in ministry. But there I was, again, leading the largest department and ministry team at the church. One day, I shared my insecurity with an older friend who was a member at that church. He listened as I shared how I carried doubt of not being good enough, even though I could do the job. It was the first time that I had told anyone about how I doubted myself. After hearing me out, he simply reminded me that God had placed me in that position, despite not having a ministry degree. Plus, my ministry team, we were exceeding expectations. He was right. The work that I was doing was better than good enough. It was exactly what I needed to hear. God used my friend to remind me that I was good enough despite how I felt or what I didn't have compared to others. His word reminded me that God chooses the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. He chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. I was God's foolish thing. I was God's weak thing. He chose me because he would be the only one who could receive the credit for my success. So that's my story. God was uprooting the confidence that I had placed in my own abilities so that my confidence would be in his ability. 3 years ago, Tanja and I formed an organization that supports leaders in ministry and nonprofit organizations. Our goal is to provide resources and opportunities that help leaders to remain healthy and whole while doing what God has called them to do. We have been privileged to hear their stories of feeling out of place or even burnt out. Now, we are able to remind them that they are good enough, not because of what they do or what they have, but because of who they are in Christ. Everyone needs to be reminded that wherever God has placed you, or whatever he has given you to do in life, that you are good enough because He is with you.